I am going to come around to the front of the podium, because I just feel a little more comfortable that way. And I don't know if y'all can see my sign there, but at least it's some notes that I can remember by it. I'm going to grab the mic here. And Nancy, let me thank you so much, you and John. I know seeing y'all down at the legislature every day, it's some encouragement. This was my second term in office, and I got to tell you, that first term, sitting on that public health committee where there were 15 Democrats and 5 Republicans, and it was torture walking down there every day. You're walking down the Capitol steps headed to that going, oh man, what do I have to put up with again today? And it was very good to have some folks sitting there on the side over there encouraging you, kind of keeps your spirits up. Many of y'all I've known for years. Some of you I've met a few times, and some of you I've never had a chance to meet before. So if you've heard any of this before, I apologize. Just live through it. My wife does. My name really is Andy Mayberry. My dad had a sense of humor that way, and I tell folks that if he had to pick a name off the show, I'm glad he went with Andy, because otherwise I'd be standing here as Opie, Gomer, or Goober. And it is awful hard to stand there and say, hi, I'm Goober Mayberry, and I'd like your vote. So, I'm good with Andy. Picture is worth 1,000 words. I hope that y'all would pick this up on the back there. This is my family. I'm a blessed man, and they're a big reason why I do what I do and why I am in politics. I'll tell you a little background on myself. I used to work for Altel Corporation, Fortune 500 company. I've also worked for the Department of Economic Development, where my job was a marketing director, promoting Arkansas basically as a good place to live, work, and do business to CEO-level decision makers across the United States and worldwide. I've had my own small business for the past 14 years. I first tried my hand at politics back in the year 2000 to run for state representative in a district that had never given more than 27% of the vote to a Republican. And I was going to run against an incumbent Democrat. And I had a number of people tell me, well, that's just silly. There is no way you can win that race. And let me tell you something, they were right. But I got 41%. And I kept on going. Took a little bit of time off there, and in the year 2006, I just about had my fill with how I was being represented in Washington, D.C. by Vic Snyder. A fellow who would probably be a great next-door neighbor, but he's not the kind of person that I want representing me in Washington, D.C., because his values are not the same as mine. They are not representative. A Democrat who basically had wiped up the map at the time with every Republican who had faced him, and people said, well, that's absolutely crazy. There is no way you can win that race. And they were right. Won a primary with 78% of the vote, but lost the general election with about 40%. If you recall, 2006 really was not a good year for Republicans, both on the state level and the national level. Fast forward a few more years. 2010, I'm in a district that's never elected a Republican, ever. The Democrat who was in the position was unopposed in her third term before she term limited out. In her second term, she had gotten over 70% of the vote. So, and again, never elected a Republican. I ran. 3 Democrats in the race. They had a runoff. We faced in the general election, and I was elected with 71%. When unopposed in my last term, and now I'm running for lieutenant governor. A tough decision about running for lieutenant governor, because I'm not term limited out of the House. And there are still some more things that I really would like to accomplish, and some things that I set in motion in the second term that I had planned on following up on in the third term. And a number of people, though, when they found out that I was thinking about running for lieutenant governor, had asked me, well, do you think that you could get your wife Julie to run for your seat? I think they really would rather have her, but that's a different story. And so I talked to Julie, and she had never considered that, but said that she would. And she is running for the State House of Representatives, and as of right now is unopposed. But that gave me a great piece about running for lieutenant governor. And here's the thing about running for lieutenant governor. People have said, well, why would you want to do that? Do we even need that office? Well, that's a great question about whether we need the office or not, and that's another one that we'll talk about at another time. But the fact is that as of right now, we have that office, and we need to make sure that we have got a good person in that office, because here's the deal. There are 2 written constitutional responsibilities of the lieutenant governor of the state of Arkansas. Number 1 is to preside over the Senate. Okay, well, with my legislative background, I think that that's a fairly easy transition. I've got a good working relationship with the members of the House of Representatives and the Senate down there. The second is to fill in for the governor in case of short-term absence or on a longer period if the governor cannot fulfill the remainder of his or her term. And you think, well, how often does that happen? Well, on the short-term basis, let's go back to September 11, 2011, terrorist strike. Governor Mike Huckabee is not in the state of Arkansas. It is Lieutenant Governor Win Paul Rockefeller at the helm. Folks, you couldn't ask for a better person to be at the helm at a time when Arkansans needed reassurance and a calm, steady hand. But it was our Lieutenant Governor who was there. Okay, so then you think, well, what about that long-term kind of deal? How often does that happen? You know what? 2 of our past 3 governors have ascended to that role directly from the office of Lieutenant Governor. When Bill Clinton decided to run for president, Jim Guy Tucker became your Lieutenant Governor. When Jim Guy Tucker faced what we shall say are legal issues, Mike Huckabee became your governor. So it can happen, it does happen, and we need to make sure that our Lieutenant Governor is someone that we feel confident in, who can step forward and take the helm of the state in that CEO level position in case the need arises. And so that person needs to have a plan on what they would do, not only as Lieutenant Governor, but potentially what would happen if they had to take over that position as Governor as well. As Lieutenant Governor, what do I want to do? Okay, first of all, you have a much more broad sphere of influence in the Lieutenant Governor's office than you do as a state representative. I get calls all the time from folks who, they've met their wits end trying to deal with state government on some level. They can't get a return phone call, they can't get an email returned to them, and so out of frustration, they've called their their state representative, hey, I was getting ahead of myself, called their state representative to try to get some help, and sometimes I can help with that, and it's good, and it feels good. I can get that phone call returned, and I can help cut through some red tape. I spent a couple of days last week trying to help one of my constituents whose child, year-old baby, in the hospital needing a heart transplant, and they had run into some insurance issues. And I spent many hours of a couple of days on the phone with the CEO of their insurance company, with the insurance commissioner of the state of Arkansas, with the CEO at Arkansas Children's Hospital, and their baby now is going to be able to have that transplant. And I don't know if my help did anything or not. I don't know if it made a difference, but it didn't hurt. And that's the kind of thing that those families need, and they're looking for some help somewhere. And in that Lieutenant Governor's office, you have more influence, you have more resources at your disposal to be able to be a citizens advocacy office. And here's what I put together as a plan of where I think that the state of Arkansas, where we need to emphasize areas of emphasis to excel. It's the Arkansas Excels Plan. It's 5 E components. The first and second go hand in hand. It's excellence in education and economic development. Those two go hand in hand. When we talk about economic development, everybody talks about creating more and better paying jobs, and I know that in our coroner's primary here in Saline County, somehow you guys have got to work jobs into that. Can you do that? But everybody's talking about creating jobs. But to do that, we've got to reform a tax code, and I'm all for that. But we can reform our tax code. We can improve infrastructure. We can lower the cost of doing business. We can ease regulations. And we need to do all of those things. But unless and until we have a skilled, trained, dedicated workforce to fill those jobs will never come. Because a company is the people who make up that company. You can have the greatest product in the world, but if you don't have the people who can manufacture that product, you don't have it. You can tout yourselves as having world-class customer service, but unless you have the people who can provide that world-class customer service, you don't really have it. So that's why I say that those two things are integral and vital and go hand in hand. Third, efficiency in government. What I would like to do with the office of Lieutenant Governor, you say, well, what? You got a big staff over there. What do you do all the time? Well, another good question. I would like to take the resources of that office and go agency by agency and sit down with frontline employees, not necessarily the administrators of those agencies, but the people who are there on the front lines who see the inefficiencies that are going on in state government. They've seen them, they know what needs to be done differently, but they've never been empowered to do anything about it. Sit down with those folks, pull together a list of suggestions and thoughts and ideas about how we can make better use of your tax-paying dollars. and then go to a conservative legislature and to a conservative governor and bring those ideas forward and help promote that efficiency in government. Fourth E, ease of doing business. I've already talked about it a lot. The people who have run into the red tape, the regulations on businesses, it's so hard when every time you turn around there's something new and that you have to do another hurdle. Sometimes it seems like we try to see how hard we can make it to do business both in the state and with the state. So let's see what we can do about that. And then the final one that I've got on here, and I put this together before I ever announced I was running. Okay, I announced on August 23rd. This was put together prior to that, and it is ethics and family values. By ethics, what I'm talking about is not creating a whole bunch of new laws, new ethics laws. It's making sure that we follow the laws that we have, that we cross our T's, and that we dot our I's. Because let me tell you, there have been just a string of things that have gone on that have contributed to the erosion of public trust in government. We, as elected officials, need to hold ourselves to a higher standard. And I'm not saying that someone can't make a human error, can't make a mistake. But we need to hold ourselves to a different standard because the public holds us to a different standard. And it is absolutely vital that we maintain that public trust, because here's the deal. We can have the best ideas. We can have the best thoughts about how government should run and about what the roles of government should be. But we can never even begin to have that conversation, much less win it, if people don't feel like they can trust the words that are coming out your mouth are the truth. We have got to restore that public trust. And then the second part of that is the family values, traditional conservative family values. What do I mean by this? I am 100% pro-life. I sit on the board of directors for Arkansas Right to Life. By the way, March for Life is coming up this Sunday, 2 p.m. Hope all of you can make it down to the Capitol for that. I was proud to be part of a conservative legislature. I was the primary sponsor for the Pain Capable Unborn Child Protection Act that protects most babies' lives. Most babies' lives after 20 weeks, which is the stage where we have identified scientifically that a child in the womb feels pain, and the methods of abortion at that stage are extremely, excruciatingly painful. It took the first ever override of a Governor Mike Beebe veto to get that passed, but we did it. And they will talk about how it's being challenged in the courts and all this. You know what? The pain capable bill, the 20-week bill, had an emergency clause on it, so the moment that veto override took place, it went into effect immediately. The law in Arkansas has not been challenged on the 20-week bill. It may be at some point in time, but as of right now it has not. We have been saving babies' lives and we will continue to do so.
That's right. Yeah.
I also believe marriage is between a man and a woman.
Yay.
And there's a lot of people who say, why is that even important? But there's an effort out there right now to repeal the very amendment that Arkansas voters passed overwhelmingly just a few short years ago. And we don't need to let that happen. What can a lieutenant governor do about that? Did I mention that big, broad sphere of influence, that larger bully pulpit? Can you specifically put your finger on it? No. But is there influence there? Absolutely there is. There's a lot of other things out there that we don't need to be going down that road. And so, as your lieutenant governor, I can pledge to you, those 4 little girls, I want them to grow up with the same kind of I mentioned that about my dad picking the name off the Andy Griffith Show. We watch a lot of Andy Griffith in our house. We had a former president who I probably shouldn't quote him here, but he was fond of saying that he still believes I still believe in a place called Hope. Well, I still believe in a place called Mayberry. I know it's a fictional place, but you know what? Folks helped each other when they saw a time of need. They didn't stop and ask, are you a Democrat or a Republican? But they prayed to God, and they followed the kind of values that we need to follow. I am Andy Mayberry. I am running for Lieutenant Governor, and I would appreciate your vote. Thank you very much.